Welcome to this webinar 2, Marketing Pivoting to Meet New Market Needs and Opportunities. We are so glad that you can participate and you can join this webinar with us. So, my dear brother, Spencer Chan, actually, the first time I met Spencer was actually at the airport.
That's correct.
Yeah. I think with Stephanie the time.
Yeah.
And really, I think before I read this, some introduction about him, I would just say my first impression about Spencer, this is a wise man of God. And we really did the prayer meeting during the time. After we met, the three of us met at the airport, and now we cannot go to the airport. Spencer just led us into prayer and prayed for us and actually prophesied, made prophecies about myself and even Stephanie. So we are so blessed that our dear brother Spencer is here with us. So Spencer is the managing consultant of SC Management Consulting Private Limited, a corporate training and consulting group of professionals dedicated to help organizations develop the strategic business thinking of their professionals and managers in a highly practitioner-oriented and practical manner. He is an experienced marketing professional. He has over 25 years of experience gained from world-class companies like Procter & Gamble, Hewlett-Packard, Citibank, and across international borders ranging from Europe, the Middle East, Central America, and Asia. Spencer brings a wealth of practical business insights and is known for his clear and strategic thinking, as well as his ability to help clients translate concepts and strategies into implementable programs to achieve measurable results. He's a wise man. A former Colombo Plan Scholar and Rotary International Foundation Fellow, Spencer has conducted extensively both academic classes and in-company workshops in sales, marketing, and customer satisfaction in Europe and in Asia. Spencer holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Western Australia and has a master's degree in business from Purdue University in the US. And actually, Spencer is one of our curriculum coaches for Partners Worldwide and a very active business affiliate for our branch or our area in Myanmar. So without further ado, our dear brother, Spencer.
Thank you so very much, Ellie. After that introduction, I feel another few inches shorter with the kind of huge, hat you put on my head. I have no way to hold it up. But actually, for whatever there is, of late, since I've been back to Christ, I realize that it's all God's doing. God has a purpose for each and every one in life. And I hope that I'll be able to, even in the next 15-20 minutes, to be able to impart to some of you some of the things that we are now discussing. First, I must say that I am no specialist. I don't think anyone in this world can call himself or herself a specialist with this COVID-19. The last major thing was actually SARS in 2003, some 17 years ago. Now, some of the people there could have probably tell a lot more, but I was there, but I was not involved in how to handle business then. So let me just quickly dive in. My next 15 minutes is really just to give an overview of how, from my experience, I see the businesses, especially that in Singapore, has been impacted by COVID-19. So let me just share screen now. Right. Uh, can you see the screen, Ellie? Okay. All right. Okay. So I will be looking at the the broader marketing, or what I call strategic marketing concept. How how is this COVID-19 affecting marketing, and what should be our response? But before I do that, let me spend a moment to uh, ground the foundation in business, which I believe all of you will agree with me that basically business is nothing but a value adding process. Whoever undertakes to get into business can only be successful if he or she really add positive value to whoever is buying or renting or doing whatever to avail themselves of whatever that you are providing. And the key success factors, I think you'll probably agree to, are based on two factors. One, if we do not have sustained customer satisfaction, I don't think your business will last very long. But that's only one side of the coin, because everybody out there is trying to provide and improve their customer satisfaction. So unless your business is able to provide a value that in the eyes of the customers is seen as better than that provided by your competition, your various competitors, then you will find yourself relegated to a me too. And you'll be fighting in what we call the sea of red rather than a blue ocean. So having anchored on this concept, I would like to now move on and ask, well, so is has COVID-19 shifted any of these success factors? My answer is no. In fact, if anything, COVID-19 or any of this such pandemic only heighten the need to ensure that the right potential customers is being offered the right services or products that will meet their needs and meet them better than your competitors. So in terms of COVID-19, we ask a question: is it a threat or an opportunity? And I would suggest that it's both. Any situation like a pandemic will initially be a threat, and later we'll see how every country is already tackling closing borders and businesses are grounded to a halt. So all these are threat. It's an overall overarching threat. But within any threat or any change in societal development, therein lies opportunity. So let's look at what are some of these opportunities. I'd like to share with you just one situation whereby there's this company, it just came out in today's newspaper in the Straits Times. It's called Meituan, spelled Meituan, Dianping. It's a Chinese company. I've never heard of it before. But you'll be surprised that this is a startup company that went into the area that has been dominated by Alibaba and Tencent. And guess what? It has now increased its sales, its market value, I say, to over 100 billion US dollar. Now imagine you jump into the market and you can grow in the market. In fact, back in March, the company took a big hit because what they have been doing is they are into providing what they call matching people, delivering things and such like. And which with COVID-19, where we all been locked in, delivery suddenly becomes a very important a service that people requires because people are locked in. So here are opportunities that if you looked around, there are. Now, let's see how COVID-19 has disrupted the business. I see three major disruptions. One is workflow, okay, because people are not allowed to go to work as normal. Singapore is still under lockdown, and only next week, then certain people will be allowed, certain businesses will be allowed to return to work. And because of this, it affected the whole supply chain. In fact, in the beginning of COVID-19, not just Singapore, many companies, I saw my son was sending me pictures of the supermarkets in Australia where they're completely emptied out, right? Because people are so panicky that they just went and hoarded everything. And then that also disrupted supply chain. So until governments have come back up and say, look, guys, be careful. Don't worry. We have enough storage and we have enough supply in the back. Don't have to rush. And of course, because of all the disruption, the whole economy has grounded to almost a standstill. Well, what I think is from a spiritual angle, I believe it's a pause button by God. What God is trying to tell us is that, hey guys, wake up. As Christians, are you really thinking you're doing the right thing? Are you still pursuing everything else except what you're trying to do in the kingdom of God? And is your business just to bring you lots of money and prosperity? What is it for you? Here is something that I feel that we, as Christian business people and leaders, should really pause and think. Now, this disruption will actually cause four different effects on the economy. Strain on the health system, we know that. Hospitals are, China has to have a lot more new building of new hospitals, change in work routines, loss of jobs and income, and that all this combined has brought about heightened anxiety and pain to many individuals, families, as well as businesses. Having with that as a background, then I asked, well, how should a business respond given the situation? I think let's go back to basics. And going back to basics in business and strategic marketing is really business, or business is strategic marketing. The other way of looking at it is we have to ask two questions. One, who are out there suffering? Because it's only when people are suffering and they are encountering problems in life that it opens up opportunities for people who then provide solutions to those problems and help to alleviate the suffering. So as a business person, we have to ask, well, within our own environment, we don't have to look at the whole world. More importantly, within the scope of where we've been operating, what is actually happening and where are these issues? And let me just give an example of the key areas where we feel that the immediate problems that COVID-19 has created. One is definitely in food and beverage. All restaurants are closed, right? So we all need food. We can't go into a restaurant. What's happening? Okay. Retail sales. Nobody goes and buy things. Malls are closed. Personal services, like Ali said, he managed to get his own cutter, right? Well, I am all waiting next week to go to a barber because the personal services have been allowed to be open again. So these are some of the areas that are really very bitterly affected. And of course, overall distribution in terms of major transport. Singapore Airlines, which has been touting as being the most profitable airline in the world for a long time, actually has to go in and to issue rights issue to raise funds. And most of the airlines have grounded their planes. This is again in terms of distribution. Now, let's bring it down to more to home, to where we are as individuals, is okay, let us now take an example of what can we do in some of this situation. Let's look at food and beverage. You see this situation here. This table shows us on the left side, you see customer needs. They need food, information, distribution, and price and value. In the next column, you see customers' problem. With COVID-19, in terms of food, we realize as far as restaurant is concerned, they cannot dine in. So what restaurants need to do is creating a solution, provide takeaway menus. There are also, people also don't know who provides what takeaway and where. So suddenly online communications and social media comes right out. And in fact, I've been receiving a lot of texts and such like from restaurants who happen to have my email addresses or my phone number and letting me know what are the takeaway menus. Also, in terms of the distribution, people cannot go to restaurant. So what to do? Immediately, delivery services become important. And on the right-hand side column, you see the delivery providers. These are the new providers that comes in. Even taxi service have turned into delivery service, and so have Grab. And of course, there's the need for higher quality, or need for quality and value despite all these changes. So how do people respond? They look at either reducing prices or increasing the value add. So this is one example. Another example would be in education and such like. But given the time, I would probably not go in. Just let you take a look at this. People are unable to learn in schools. Social platform comes on. Content providers will create online lessons. They don't know where to get it. Increased use of social media, create content providers, create attractive programs, and so on and so forth. You can actually draw and map all this up to different areas of industry, and then look at yourself, where are you, and what are some of the gaps or the problems that have come about because of COVID-19. So, and just to give you an illustration, in Singapore, there were opportunities immediately. On the left-hand side, home bakers have grown, and this little tag is from the newspaper. Home bakers seeing surge in sales amid circuit breaker period. And on the other side, we have on the right bottom, there are Chinese home cooking, so that instead of you go to a restaurant for your lovely food, they're providing you a home cooked meal as a spread. And of course, in between, to ensure these two gets to be delivered, you have things like Deliveroo, which is a delivery service, and Grab food. And right in the middle of it is IT, whereby this contraption here is for people to place order and then to inquire. So these are just an example of how some opportunities can come out for small businesses and SMEs in your various countries. And now let me look at then for what Ali talked about, the new normal. What is this new normal? Actually, the new normal is only evolving. Nobody really can tell, but there's an indication. And I submit to you 3 areas of the new normal. Number 1, things becomes distributed rather than concentrated. As you can tell already, instead of going to an office to work, most companies now, in fact, all the IT companies, their staff are working from home. That itself is a distributed concept. It's almost like in the old days when we have the central IBM mainframes, and then things move into a distributed data processing, and finally into personal computers, and eventually now everybody is holding a mobile phone, which is his own computer as well. So it gets distributed. Now, what is driving this enablers for this wave is actually more technology and AI driven. And you know, we all know in the Bible that information will increase and at an increasing rate. So this is something that we have to understand and grapple with as we move into the post COVID-19 period. And finally, the teams would no longer it still be teams, but not congregated in a building, but these teams are what we call interconnected networks, and we are connected by electronics more and more. So here is my take on some of the key areas of the new normal. And in the case of what we call the marketing focus, if for us in business, what are some of the takeaways I would like to share with you? Basically, 4. This is a standard I would tell anyone in marketing, whether they're the old normal or the new normal. marketing and business hasn't really changed. What are they? Number one, if you're in business, I would suggest you observe changes and then ask a question. What is causing these changes and why? Because only when you get down to the whys, then you can know what are the factors that's causing the problems, and business is supposed to address the root cause of the problem and not the surface. Now, once you've got that in line, the next question you have to ask yourself is, so who are affected? In marketing terms, what segment is being affected? Okay, and what particular things are they affected by? What are their needs area? And in the case, knowing what changes, what needs, what problems need to be resolved by who are the target customers, the next thing that we look at is, well, as an organization, as my company, do I have what it takes to address those issues? What resources are indeed needed? And more importantly, I have to beat the other guy called my competitors. So how can I differentiate myself, my product, my services from my competitors? And with these, then you have to turn back to what are the assets you need to have in order to address these four areas. And I submit to you, in the post-COVID-19 as well as in pre, you should have the similar thing, but certain things are more important. Human capital is number one. It's human being. When I was at Procter & Gamble, the former chairman then said, you can take away P&G brands, you can take away our buildings, you can take away all our factories. Leave me with Procter & Gamble people, and I will rebuild another P&G. I think that is a very good statement. And creativity and innovation comes from people. God gives people a sound mind, and God gives people, because God is a creator, the ultimate creator of everything. So let's talk to God, all right? And because we are human beings and not human doings, it's key for relational. That means look at yourself and not just your customer. That's too narrow. I would suggest look at your stakeholders. In other words, who are the people involved? Your customers, your suppliers, your employees, and those people around you. It has to be much more relational. And finally, what helpline do we have? I've talked about government spending money, there are services, but honestly, as Christians and Christian business people, the real true solution is keeping close to God. And I will leave you with just two verses that has been what I've been holding on to from my business activity and more importantly, from my life. Matthew chapter 6 verse 33 said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. When you as an individual take hold of kingdom of God righteousness and seek after that, all these things will be added unto you. And as you move into your business, hold on what we call the royal law of loving God and loving your neighbor as yourself. For we all need to know that your business activity is truly another act of worship. So thank you very much. And I'll just hand you back to the host, Ellie.
Amen. Thank you so much, Brother Spencer. Indeed, very timely and really the wisdom from God and from your experience. So we will be, I'll now be introducing our next presenter. But before that, would just like to remind you again that you can actually write your questions for our presenters. It's on the link that Jimmy shared on the chat. So just click on that, and then you will see, you will be directed to the site where you can write the question. And if you can see the questions there, the other questions that have been written already, if you think that's the same question that you would like to ask also, just click the thumbs up so that it will be prioritized. So I just saw that there are already many questions. So, shoot those questions so that we'll have a very interactive, meaningful time later. Okay, so we will now be, I'll now be introducing our next presenter, panelist. Okay, and I'm trying to share my, seems that I cannot change my slide, so I'll just introduce him. Actually, yesterday was the first time I saw him through, no, 2 days ago, using Skype video call. And but Lucien Ong, who is originally from Brunei, he manages JJ Lab. It's an industrial company here in the Philippines. JJ Lab or JJLAPP is the market leader for industrial connectivity solutions in the Philippines, with reference projects across industrial automation, power, infrastructure, buildings, and solar industries. Lucien specializes in developing win-win partnerships and has presented interests of government like the U.S. State Department and APEC, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, and business leaders in Australia, Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and the United States. Lucien obtained his MBA from INSEAD. I was trying to pronounce that acronym, but it was difficult. So maybe Lucien can, pronounce that. INSEAD, and studied at the Wharton School. He currently serves as the Executive Committee Vice President for Partnerships for INSEAD Alumni Associations in the Philippines. So may I present to you our second panelist who will be sharing more on the practical, experiential side, managing a business here in the Philippines. Lucien Ong.
Thank you, Eli. Firstly, to Jackie, to Eli, Partners International, thank you for this this opportunity to be able to share our own experience here in the Philippines. Just for everyone's background, I run an industrial cable connectivity company here in Manila. I really like Eli's analogy earlier about how Philippines has the long, I knew it was long, I didn't know it was that long. The longest quarantine or lockdown in the world this Saturday. It's been a long time. The way I counted, if we really transition from this lockdown next week, it will make 11 weeks of lockdown. There is real business impact to my business. We've seen a lot of impact across the business community here in the Philippines. I assume it would be similar across Southeast Asia, where I think most, if not all of you are from. I'll just share with you, I think very quickly, 10-15 minutes, what we have seen, what we have been trying to do in all this uncertainty, what we have discovered, and what has been successful. Just very practical best practices that we have discovered. Now, this is what we are seeing. A lot of the projects that we work on, so we do a lot of construction projects, building projects, etc., etc. A lot of them have been delayed. Only the biggest companies here in the Philippines are continuing. And even then, I think even the biggest companies delay, but definitely all the small companies, all the speculative contractors, everything is delayed, if not suspended indefinitely. What we're seeing is more and more SMEs and companies are starting to have cash flow pressure. So it is very, very common now to see emails and phone calls where people are asking if they can delay payments, if they can delay invoicing. And we're seeing that very, very often, and it's something that we're looking at very closely at, because you don't want a situation where everyone stops paying you, and there's kind of it's not a good situation. From a staff or from a HR point of view, unfortunately, we are also seeing there is a lot of local companies are putting their employees on unpaid leave. They're definitely putting them on work from home arrangement, but there's this whole notion of unpaid leave, forced leave, or worse, it is starting to happen. And this is also very concerning. Basically, it's a very, I think, anxious environment we're in right now, and we look forward to next week. Hopefully, we have a good transition. Hopefully, the cases of COVID here in the Philippines remain subdued, and hopefully we can transition, because the business environment has to get back to work. This country, and I think with all other emerging economies in Southeast Asia, which is basically everyone except Singapore and maybe Brunei, basically I think the economy has to go back to work. So so we're seeing the same thing as what you guys are seeing. Now, let me start off by saying what happened. What did we do in the last couple of months? Well, if there was a webinar like this 2 months ago, I would have tuned in and listened, because I didn't know what to do. But what we decided to do 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, is information gathering was critical. It was early days. If you can just kind of jog your memory back to 3 months ago in your own country, there were kind of announcements coming out. There were maybe social media postings about rumors about the new restrictions. And this was happening everywhere. And this was certainly happening in the Philippines. And so what we decided in that first month, before we made drastic decisions, we needed to really understand what was going on in the market. Now, what did that mean? We obviously look at social media, we watch the news at night. We don't believe everything we hear, because you've got to kind of sense check or fact check everything, but we had to be on the phone all the time. So a lot of the time was just on the phone, on Zoom, in emails. I personally was speaking to my business counterparts, people in other, similar companies, just finding out what do you know, what have you heard, what do you think is going to happen, what are you doing while we wait for the announcements, do you know when the quarantine will end? So that's what I was doing. My colleagues were doing the same with their contacts. We would always be sharing to see what the pulse of the market was. Two other things that we did that were very useful. We have an indoor telemarketing team, and we made sure that we had customer surveys. We called maybe 100, 150 customers, and we just asked them very broad, general, open-ended questions. How is the COVID affecting you? What's your work arrangement? How can we help you more? Is there anything that we can do at this time for you? Just no hard selling, just figuring out what the pulse was for our customers, so we know how to respond. The other thing that we did that was quite helpful for our industry, we've got about, let's say, 5 to 10 companies that we would consider as competitors. We also did market studies. We would do kind of cold calling. We would do fake inquiries. We would look at their website, their Facebook page, and we would also try and figure out what they were doing. I mean, everything was above board. Everything was, we were private citizens just doing our thing, but we were also trying to figure out if we picked up the phone, would anyone answer? Most of them didn't answer, because we realized that most of them were on unpaid leave. But it was good to know what our competitors were doing too. So that was very helpful for us, and that kind of guided our thinking in the first couple of weeks. And by the way, we've been doing it ever since. But it was especially critical 2 months ago. Now, what did we discover? I will not be so technical, because I think it's a bit specific, but I will discover in general what we have found. We discovered that yes, most, if not all, companies were on work from home arrangement, or they were on forced leave arrangement. And what was happening is there was this real culture of anxiety across the system, not only in our own company, but everywhere you look. People were anxious because everyone was forced into this situation at the same time. Here in the Philippines, what compounded this even more is that all public transport was shut down immediately. And so people were stuck at home. There were police on the street. People were not allowed to go out unless they had, I don't have it with me, but they needed pass to walk around. If not, you would be summoned by the police, right? And then everyone was forced to go on forced leave or work from home. And there was so much anxiety. So that was kind of insight number one, not a special insight, but a legitimate insight. Insight number two, as we started to call our customers, there's this Filipino term, malasakit, if I'm saying that right. If I understand it, it means care, it means compassion. It means, how are you doing? How can I help you? And so we started to, as we were calling people, we realized that they were very appreciative that we bothered to call, even though it was 2 minutes, even though of course there were no orders that they were going to place right now. But just by calling, how can I help you? If there's anything you need, here's my number, call me, I'll try my best. We found that was very appreciated in this very anxious time for the whole community. Last but not least, what surprised us is there were a number of customers who we had no real visibility or engagement with in a normal time, big corporates or whatever, right, that we just couldn't contact. In this time, we found there were a lot of relationships and a lot of customers that, because we reached out, not everyone, but a lot of them, we reached out, and before COVID, no time for me, didn't pick up my phone call, but now they're willing to talk to me for 2 hours about how business is going. And I find it's a bit counterintuitive. We never guessed that this would happen, but we were just on the phone all the time because there are people now who I consider as friends, and it all started 2 months ago. So these were insights we found, and they were surprising to us. Now let me get into the marketing response. Not many, just 3 points for you. These were 3 things we did that were extremely helpful for us, and I think it is setting us up to succeed and to, well, maybe not to survive and even to succeed in the next couple of months, I hope. So number 1, digital marketing. Sure, we had a LinkedIn page. Sure, we know what an email looks like. Sure, we once in a while send an email, right? But what we decided to do very early on is we decided that we wanted to actively communicate, not because an email is an email, but because in this time of anxiety, whoever controls the messaging controls the narrative around the space. And we decided, because emails are free, because we had 5,000 contacts in our database, all it takes is a couple of hours and a very talented in-house marketing guy that I have, Darwin there. He puts together these graphics, and you send out messages. You don't hard sell, but you send out messages. Free training for our partners. We are here to serve you. What else? We are here to be your long-term partner for your projects. Early on, Darwin actually suggested to me I try not to have too much of this publicity, but he said, put your face in an email and write this letter from the GM thing. And actually he wrote it for me, but we kind of co-wrote this thing where I was just expressing to our customers that here's my number, give me a call if you need my help. And so we wanted to actively just control the narrative that the world might be crumbling around us, but JJ Love is here to serve you. And so that was what we did. What we discovered through that, let me just share an anecdote that we were also surprised by. So emails were one thing. We then pivoted to LinkedIn graphics, very similar to this Partner International graphic that you have seen today. We decided, or we guessed, that not everyone's going to look at it. Emails are kind of boring after a while. We thought a nice picture, a nice headline, maybe a little bit of text and a link in case you want to know more. And we turned it into bite-sized graphics instead. My colleague shared it on LinkedIn. I reshared it. Someone reshared it. Someone reshared it. And we actually realized that they had much more traction. Once again, we were just trying stuff out on digital marketing. What really helped me, helped my company in this space, is in the particular industry that we're in, which is industrial cables, very specific. Our competitors were either not allowed to do it because their global HQ didn't give the approval, or they were not working anyway because they were on unpaid leave. But it was very interesting because we were the only players in town, and we were flooding digital marketing when everyone else was quiet. It remains to be seen, but I think we did well in this front. The second thing that we did that has proven to be so successful, exactly what we're doing today, webinars. It's free. Everyone's working from home anyway. What we have discovered, a lot of the major, I won't mention company names, but a lot of major companies who were still keeping people on payroll, they had people working from home and they were not sure what their colleagues were doing. And so all we needed to do was send an invite to the right person in the company, say, hey guys, here's a free 2-hour training. Does anyone want it? and the boss will then CC it to his HR department. The HR department will just kind of send it out to 50 people. And I don't know whether they wanted to be in our training or not, but they didn't have a choice because they were all on payroll and they were all working from home. So we suddenly have this like exclusive audience with all these companies. And so we started this 2 months ago. My colleagues were also even I was unsure whether it was going to work. It was more successful than we thought. And in the last month, we've done 40 webinars. And I can assure you that 2 months ago, we had 0 webinars. Now, this is something that I think we will keep on doing going forward because it's free and I think it works. The last thing that I want to talk about, marketing response, this is not really marketing per se, but for me, it's critical. Active communication, this is internal marketing. Not only are our customers anxious, not only am I anxious, but my team, the team that I have journeyed with, the kind of band of brothers and sisters with me, everyone is anxious. And initially we kept quiet because we were also not sure how this would play out. But I discovered very quickly that it is better to over communicate rather than under communicate. And when you communicate, what I discovered, so what I did is we had weekly town halls, internal 30 people Zoom calls, and it was better and more morale boosting to be candid about the situation than being motivational, blah, 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 nice airy comments that everybody knows is not true. Be candid about what's happening, but also give them psychological safety because we don't know what's going on. But guess what, guys? We're in this together. It's not just you, it's also me, but I am with you and we're in this together. And I felt that that kept my company with sufficient morale in this very uncertain time. And we're about to end this COVID situation. Now, I'm going to wrap this up with just 3 very quick lessons that I have learned overall. One is to always have a proactive strategy. I don't think the new normal is going anywhere anytime soon. We're right in the middle of it. It's going to be like this for the next 9 months, a year or longer, right? But I think you need to have a proactive strategy. We cannot control what has happened to us. We cannot control that the public transport has stopped or that we're on a lockdown, but we can control our response. And you may not get the perfect response right now, but you need a response rather than doing nothing. Doing nothing is the worst thing you can do right now. Second thing is actively communicate. I think there's a quote somewhere, you can never over communicate in a crisis. You must always communicate. Of course, we are believers here. Communicate with integrity. Don't lie. Don't be manipulative. Don't use pressure or fear tactics to make people worried. Just, I think, communicate with integrity. And this is where people of faith, I think, really stand out because this is where we add value in the ways that we know how. And the last thing that I want to say, in times of crisis like this, it is not the largest companies that succeed. What I have seen is that the large companies have a lot of red tape. The large companies have a lot of hierarchy, a lot of approvals that need to go through. It's the most agile, it's the fastest that wins. Now, when I talk about fast, I don't mean do something dramatic like cancel your lease or hire 20, but be smart about it. Make small bets like digital marketing that are free. But the fastest, get onto Zoom if you don't know how to use it. For me, 2 months ago, I had never used Zoom before. Get on a Zoom call, figure it out. Get comfortable and then teach your colleagues to use it. I mean, it's free, but you got to move. And the ones that win, I think, post-COVID are those that have adapted to the new normal, not the big, giant dinosaur company that doesn't know what to do because it's against the SOP. So these are the lessons I'm learning. Yeah, I look forward to this Q&A session. It's not Eli said, it's not question and answer. It's question and share it. A question and what is it, Eli?
From last
Question
week,
and response, right?
Yes. From last week said.
Question and response. We don't know the right answers, but we will try our best.
Yep.
So that's my sharing. Thank you, Eli, again.
Yep. Yes. Thank you so much, Lucian, and really for sharing your experience. Your company's experience here at BGC, and one of these days, hopefully after the lockdown over, we'll have coffee there. Before we go to the question and response from Mason Tan, we will remind the participants, you can still write your questions on the link that was provided by Jimmy on the chat box. don't write your questions on the chat box, but do it at the link, the Slido link. Okay, so Spencer, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Yep. So I think I visited the Slido and there are many questions there, but let's start with 2 or 3 questions here. We are still in the midst of this lockdown, pandemic, and both of you or each one of you can answer. And you share this in both of your presentations, the changes, the disruptions. But as many of our participants here are leaders, entrepreneurs themselves, what do you think are the changes that will be permanent and changes that will just be temporary in terms of doing business?
Well, someone taught me long ago, change, right? The only constant is change itself. I used to mention to many of my students when I teach, I use the Chinese term for business. And for those of you who know Chinese or Mandarin, it means it's the two terms or the 2 words for business is shen yi. Now shen yi means life dealings or things that affect life. Now, life itself is ever changing. The moment a sperm hits an egg, the change process starts by splitting and duplicating and so on. And therefore, throughout of life, if we don't change and don't grow, we start to die. So therefore, there is no fixed constant. What may seem to be constant will only be for a period. And that's why what I like, what Lucian said, you have to be always anticipating change. And somewhere I learned in the past that opportunity indeed knocks at the door of those who are prepared. So you have to be always anticipating, always looking ahead, rather than being laid back. Things are fine and dandy.
Thank you, Spencer. Lucian, do you have insight on that?
Yeah, just about the overall business environment. I think remote working is here to stay. I think I wasn't used to it. I kept on telling my wife that I'll be back at work this week, and nice to see you. I'll see you. But no, even me, me and my whole company, we're alternating days, right? Team A, Team B. And I think what is really going to happen is that we're all going to discover that remote working is totally fine because it's output driven. It's not how many hours you're sitting in an office. And I think more and more companies will just turn into that thing. Now, I want to talk about the remote working phenomenon here. I think that flexibility is now something that will be very much valued by the workforce. Employers want flexibility, so employers will start to offer contract work. And I think what we're seeing is employees also want flexibility. So when we were open and flexible about working from home, it was really, actually, no, let me rephrase. When I insisted that my colleagues report back to duty on Monday, you could sort of see the anxiety and a little bit of pushback. People were not comfortable about the public transportation. But I realized that as I was a bit more flexible about it, they were much, much happier. And I think what will happen is the companies that learn to be flexible with this work from home, remote working arrangement, I think that's the way of the future. The other thing that I just want to very quickly say that may or may not be relevant to people, I think SMEs are just going to struggle a little bit going forward. I think cash flow is an issue. And so all of us in SMEs right now need to just be very, very mindful about the cash flow. Preserve your cash flow. Don't spend anything glamorous right now. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of SMEs might struggle with that. And I think the big conglomerates will just take over industries. So even for us as company, we are now focusing our business with the conglomerates, not with the SMEs. because we're not sure whether they will have the financial health to survive. Yeah, so that's I think that's here. I don't think that's here to stay forever, but I think certainly in the next 1.5, 2 years, that is what you will. So there will be more and more Jollibees everywhere you go. I think
Hopefully.
that's what is going to happen.
We'll see. Yes, thank you, Lucian and
Yeah.
Spencer. You know, I think Spencer presented something, a question. Is it a threat or an opportunity? And with these changes, permanent, temporary, or, you know, for the meantime, and as participants here who are representing businesses, small business, micro businesses, small and even organizations, what do you think are some of the opportunities and the needs that can be, you know, explored and that we can really enter into? We can access the, you know, these opportunities in the coming days when the new normal comes.
I guess if you refer back to what I said in one of my slides, actually opportunities come about only when there are so-called problems, when there are needs, right? Because when there are new needs, because normally situation business comes in there's some needs and people address those needs, and then the business become a status quo. And then there are some changes, either environmental, government, or cultural changes. When these changes come about, it will disrupt either in a small or a larger way the situation as of then, and therefore there will be gaps to the normal, so to speak. And therefore, those people who are entrepreneurs are the one who spot the gaps. I mean, nobody think that someone can create a mouse, or that this is what they call Steve Jobs to come out with something that's, you know, people think it's a toy, right? When I first saw the little what I call his first little computer, I thought it was a toy, but it became fantastic, right? So actually, we should not boo-boo those things that people are doing up, and then you wait. So those who are in the first to market are usually the people who actually win a lot more, because they have the guts, they've taken a risk, and they are well rewarded.
Yeah. Thank you, Spencer. Lucian, anything to add on that?
Yeah, just specifically from a SME point of view, I think we have access now to talents or kind of desirable candidates or desirable partners that we never had access to before because of all of the disruption. I think that as a small business owner, if you are able to meet the needs of your partner, and it's not always about the most salary, right? It's about flexibility. It's about allowing them to work from home 3 days a week. You will find that people who may not have considered your company or your enterprise before, they now are very happy to join you. That's what we are seeing in our company. The second thing, if you're an SME and if you can either partner with or have a friend who's talented at digital marketing or graphic design, I think, you know, you can never have too many good graphic designers right now. I really, really think that at least here in the Philippines, what I have seen, it's not an even playing field. There are those with good digital marketing presence and those that don't have good. And I think just make sure that you know someone who's very good at the graphics, because I think you can really, really stand out. And the thing about online is no one really knows. Yeah, you are what you present, right? The last thing that I want to say about the opportunity is what we are seeing is the narrative you tell to your customer now. It's not about the transaction. It's not about how many deals you do. It's not so cutthroat. Sign within 48 hours or else I'm going. I think now the narrative needs to be, we're here to be a long-term partner. If you have a bit of payment issues or you need a bit of flexibility with this, or you want us to give you a bit of extra value add for free, I think if you are able to show yourself as a partner and we're here to get through this together, I think you gain a lot of social capital. and you gain a lot of, they will remember you for the right reasons. So I think this is the opportunity now to have a softer message than the cutthroat big company that,
Yeah.
pay me tomorrow. I don't think that's the message you want to send to the market right now. So
Thank
for me,
you.
these are the opportunities.
Thank you so much. Actually, I was reading an article at Forbes one time, and it says, the key is to have a story. You now present a story or promote a story, not just the product. So to segue on that, in focusing on marketing and with these changes, with these opportunities, with this new normal, which is we still don't know how would, we are just seeing glimpses of it.
Yeah.
So in terms of really getting into the customers or the consumer in relation to your marketing strategy, what practical suggestions can you give to, not even small, but micro entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, and even medium enterprise, so that they can keep up with these new opportunities, these new changes in terms of doing business, in terms of marketing?
You're talking about engaging being able to connect with potential
Yes.
customers and
Yeah.
partners.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we're in SME. We're not that micro, but one of the things we're exploring now is Viber communities. You know what inspired it? I was on Instagram the other day looking for some dinner, and Jollibee ad popped up, and they said that they have Viber groups for their customers, and I thought, what Jollibee has a parent. So I said to my team, guys, if Jollibee can do it, so can we. So I think there is no excuse. I think this is the great equalizer. I think right now people are getting used to the fact that everything is going to go online, and Viber is free. And I mean, I don't know what the right answer is, but hey, spend an hour after this, download Viber and figure out what the heck is. Get on the Jollibee community and see what deals they have there. Do something similar, right, for your customers. So yeah, that's
Thank you.
what we do. Yeah.
Yep, Spencer.
I fully agree, because another of my slide, I say is more relational. Remember what I said? And that actually is the execution of relational. It's no longer transactional. Just the money you buy, that's it. Relation, that means you build a community. And that's how in IT you notice that Google and everybody else is building community. And when you have a problem, you click, and there's a whole lot of people give you the answers of people who have already answered those questions before.
Right.
So actually it's a community engagement, and that's how it started, with people not knowing each other, coming together, and they have a common interest because they are actually resolving a common issue around whatever that is.
Thank you. So last question before I turn over to Jimmy for the phone in or chat in questions. I think let's look at the entrepreneur themselves, or the leader, the manager,
Right.
the social entrepreneur, the director. What do you think are the essential characteristics, essential qualities entrepreneurs should have, managers should have, leaders should have, so that they will not only adapt to changes, but not just to survive, but even just like your word, Lucian, to be successful, to thrive in this new thing that is coming?
Spencer, do you want to?
Huh? Oh, sure. Actually, I'm glad you asked that question. Only a few days ago, when I was listening to the various Q&A sessions, and of course the various sermons preached by our dear brother who has gone home to the Lord, Dr. Ravi Zacharias. Now, you know that he's a great apologist.
Yeah.
And he's everywhere on top university campuses. But what advice that came out to me was actually listen and question. More listening, questioning than telling. Most leaders, like myself included, my wife is a tenant, go and heed your own advice. Speak less, Tell us. And when somebody asks a question, it's okay to respond, and use the word you use, Alice, to respond with another question. Because sometimes the asking a question helps to shape the thought process a lot better. In fact, Socrates came up with this called the Socratic questioning, the philosopher, the Greek philosopher, a long time ago. And in fact, in law school, they actually teach this process called Socratic thinking, Socratic questioning. And actually, if you ask the people who are doing strategic thinking and such like, it's the questioning process. So as a good leader is learning how to listen more and ask questions rather than telling.
Wow, well said. Thank you. Lucian, add to that?
Yeah, not easy, right? Because we don't know what will happen, right? In my case, I'm in a, it's not my company. I have bosses, I have shareholders, and they will decide what they will decide, right? But what has helped me in this very anxious time is, well, first of all, I believe this is this is a faith-based group and webinar, right? What has helped anchor me in the last 3 months of high anxiety and stress is every day before I get out there and lead my team, spend time with the Lord, get myself right, clean up my junk, right? And just be clear about what you stand for, what your values are. And in short, I think getting your moral compass or your anchor or your integrity, just kind of getting that back in balance. Because in times like this, it is very easy to panic. It is very easy to be reactive. It's very easy to be emotional and and overreact, right? And then you do things that are irreversible. And I feel that if you can anchor that and have that integrity and just remembering that he is in control, it doesn't mean that you must always protect your staff or at all costs make sure that there are no cost reductions, or it doesn't mean that you suddenly have to like protect I think there are business decisions to be made, but if you have integrity and if you lead with that compass in mind, then I think you can go forward knowing that you are doing the right thing based on what you believe to believing based on what you think the right thing is. Because it's there are many ambiguous situations and there are no right answers, right? So for me, that has helped. I think if I went through the last 3 months without spending my time with the Lord every morning and every night, I don't know how I would have reacted. And that has been very helpful for me.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. Actually, I could be a participant here until 11 tonight, just listening to the responses of Luciana and Spencer. But now I have to turn it over to Jimmy because I think there are many questions still to be not answered, responded to.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. I totally agree with you. I could stay until 11 p.m. at night just listening to you guys talking. There's so much insight. So are you ready, Lucian and Spencer, for the questions? There are already about 16 questions coming in, but we'll start with the most voting first. So this is the first questions. What are the best ways to research new markets, especially with limited time and resources as a small business owner? What is the best way?
Shall I start?
Yeah, sure.
I only look at it from actually both a consumer, B2B, and B2C and B2B situation. Most of companies will say, first thing you want to know information, go and do marketing research or market research. Very simple, right? Very easy. And what I learned I learned it from my tutors at Procter & Gamble. When you actually working, even though you're working on P&G, such large companies, and at the time I was actually in Central America. I was running like places like Panama, Guatemala, Honduras, all those very exotic places in Central America. Now, and the business is not so big, even though I may have about an average of 3 brands in one of the markets, and I had 7 markets. So how do I get information? So actually it's very commonsensical. And it's like what I said earlier, you open your mouth and ask. So what we do is we ask, but it's a very tedious process. I remember, like, whenever I descended in a nation, let's say Panama City, my first 2 days will be just walking the shops and talking to all the various supermarket owners, and not just the owners. In fact, we actually seldom talk to owners. We talk to the people on the ground. I walk into the supermarket and I talk to the, not so much even the manager. I'll go look at the person who stocked the shelves, because I want the true information. And who knows best is the person who actually stocked the shelf, because the manager is not going to share with you all his that statistics, right? So you have to go around about it, okay? So I was there always with a couple of bars of Swiss chocolates and presented them and start to talk to them. And I asked a very standard question, and it's how I build. In fact, using those questions, I'm able to build a market share trend without doing market research that way. Now I swing that over from a B2C to a B2B when I was working for a Hewlett Packard. We were actually in the Philippines, and not literally, I was on my own at the time. I was in the Philippines, and we were working for Siemens, which is a very major company. So I had to go and train their managers and such like. So they said, how do I know? How do I get competitive information? I said, well, go and talk to your first level, your dealers, your distributors, okay, and the people who want to shop. But a lot of people say, they ask me, can I do that? So that's obvious that you have a negative, I cannot. In fact, when I was at HP, I even went and called my people to call IBM to ask about their system, because I have an IBM personal computer. I want to understand your service contract for the IBM. So they have no choice. I mean, I didn't tell them HP, but if they ask me, I'll tell them HP. So in other words, you just have to ask, okay? Now, if you ask, you probably get 0, but there's a chance you get something. So talking to people in the trade, and as Lucien said, you build a relationship. So when they talk to people, they know that you're not trying to steal information. You're trying to understand the industry need, and therefore, especially in your own niche, you're able to therefore be much better prepared.
Yeah, that's good. Anything to add, Lucien?
No.
Okay, thank you, Spencer. So this is the next question. A very important question we are wondering right now. Will my business, product, or service be relevant post-COVID? How do we even tackle that questions? So I guess this person
that's part of the question. The second, how do we even tackle the question?
Yes, like what to ask. How do we know that this will be relevant post-COVID?
I'll try. So I think now it is very important to figure out well, we don't know what industry, what product what country, right? But it is very important to know what the customer wants in your context right now. And what the customer wanted 6 months ago is very, very different from what the customer wants now. In my industry, it's true, and I think this is probably true everywhere. So I think that's the best way to start, to really have and if you are not sure what the customer wants, you just have to figure it out. Have coffee chats, do surveys, ask for feedback. And I think from there, and once you have some level of certainty about where the customer wants, you then try and modify your offer or your product or your service to adapt. And I actually think that not every company will succeed in this. In fact, I think most will not. And I think this is the opportunity, because if your product or service is adaptable, and if you have done your research and you are fairly clear about where the customer is going, and if you meet their needs, I think you have a chance to, and maybe the product you end up with in 3 months' time might be very different from what you thought 6 months ago. But if you can be flexible about it, because the world has changed. And if you can adapt to this, I think this is an opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, like following up these questions, we're talking about to determine what kind of product or pivoting the product or services that we have.
Yeah.
There's this one very.
Can I add to what Lucien said?
Okay,
because
Spencer.
it's actually something very important. What he just said is that it's the key is that what do the customers want in the new normal, right? So that is the first question to ask. The question is that how do you know what a customer wants? It has to be very practical, right? So if you are a normal business person out there, actually talking to people will be very good. And when I talk to people, like what Lucian say, I always say, oh, very good. So what do you like about our shop, our store, whatever? You start with that, okay? And then you say, yeah, they will be very polite. Then you ask them, well, is there anything that you have on your wish list? Is there anything that you would love to have? You don't have to negatively put it something that we're not. So when a customer say, well, it's good, but now I'm going to open my ears when the but comes about. Because a but means there is something behind it which I'm not telling you. That's a yeah, but what? And usually from the but, that's when you can pull out. As you drill into it and you have a friendly chat, you can pull out all things. So that's one way when you have the interaction. Another way is walk around and observe. So I think you've seen the US TV program where even the CEO walks around and pretend to be a customer, right? Basically to actually find out. So that was a case which really make a marked impression on me. It was not what I observed, but what was told to me. The then Pampers brand manager. Pampers brand, as many of you know, is a huge brand. At that time, back in the 70s, the US Pampers brand is a $500 million business in the US. Now, they do a lot of research on all that. But this Pampers brand manager makes and he's like a general manager. He walks the shop, he walks the store and walks the supermarket. And guess what? He was observing how the shoppers are doing. And he notices at the till that these ladies were carrying 2 or 3 boxes of Pampers, walking out the checkout very clumsily. Then I say, why is it so? Now, at the time, I remember I was selling Pampers. They pack in packs of 12s and 24s. Okay, that's all. But when he started observing, he realized, could there be a need for a bigger packaging? That was a question he asked himself. So he observed some more, and finally, enough observation on the qualitative, then he started to do a quantitative research to ascertain whether there is such a need. And to cut a long story short, Pampers came up with what they call the convenience pack, a pack of 48 and 60. And that just took the market like this by storm. Simple observation.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, yeah, talk to people and observe. Very practical way to do that. Yeah. So this next question is this, talking about pivoting, is how do we hold tightly to the core values or mission of the company while pivoting? Or does that conflict if we change our markets? Or do you have any examples of good change in terms of pivoting and not conflicting with the values and the mission of the company before in this situation?
I'm not quite sure if I understood the question
so
correctly.
Yeah, if we need to pivot our companies, the service and the product, how do we do that? If I mean, like we also have to hold tight on the core values of the company and the mission. How do we do that? I mean, sometimes like we have to really just pivot towards different direction.
Yeah, let me try. So I think that this is a real opportunity. If you're in a company that has strong values, not just writing something nice, but they truly have values. And if you have also personally a very strong value, because I think not everyone has equal levels of value system. Some are a bit more ambivalent about values. But I actually think that in this time of uncertainty, if you have values you can cling on to, that's an asset. Because that becomes your guiding light. I think when we talk about pivot, we don't pivot values, we pivot digital, we pivot marketing channels, we pivot pricing, we pivot, we delay store expansion, but you don't pivot your values. If you say that you believe in trust and partnership before COVID, then, and if you truly believe that, then you keep your values and then you pivot to what does partnership look like in the new normal. So for me, I think there's a very, very clear distinction here. So yeah,
Yeah, thank you. I think hopefully this answered the questions. Anything from you, Spencer, regarding this?
Oh, what actually came to mind when the question was asked was, as long as you hold on to what Lucian also said, integrity, and what I said, that you're basing your values on God, which is my very last slide when I had the verses I gave. Because if you hold on to the Christian principles of doing business, I know that there are many of my friends who disagree with me. They say, come on, but you're in business. I said, so? I mean, business is actually what God has given is business. Look at how Joseph has done it. You go and read Genesis and how Joseph has been even trading. And he managed to, finally when the people don't have money to buy the wheat, right? He said, never mind, we can exchange. You can give the Pharaoh cows and whatever. And finally, they even give the land. And eventually, then Joseph said, oh, not just the land, you can come and work for Pharaoh. So basically, business itself is not bad. But if you pivot and use principles that are worldly principles and not godly principles, which therefore does not hold true to honoring God and loving your neighbors and yourself, that business can only have a certain shelf life. After over some time, it will still not do well. That's why I say, so pivoting from a much more global level as what is business to the individual.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. And I think this next question would be especially for Lucien, since you are in the Philippines. So we have this one question. What are the best products to manufacture and market in the new normal, particularly by micro entrepreneurs in the Philippines? Very
wow, that's a very $1 million question.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I can tell you what we are buying a lot of. Okay, I'm really not prepared for this answer, but if you sell this kind of stuff, or you sell those, the gel and kind of anything relating to health. And actually, just on that note, I have a good friend in Singapore also running a Christian social enterprise. She has masks, right? But it's kind of high quality, nice design. Maybe she uses cloth rather than I don't know what you call this. A little bit more expensive. And I would buy one if I was in Singapore, but I'm not in Singapore. But so I can share. You know what? Let me find out the link of that. But anyway, my long answer short. Maybe Spencer has a better answer. I think anything about safety and health, because this is here to stay.
Yep.
My company, just an insight, my company, whether we like it or not, we have a budget for these things now. We did not have a budget before, but now we're obliged to buy stuff like this for our staff. So get into that industry.
Yep. Thank you for that answer. $1 million questions. Anything from you, Spencer? Do you see anything like maybe?
I love the Philippines. There's something that I see is that Filipino people, Filipina, how do you call them? They are very people-oriented people. So the social interaction is a standard. So if there's anything that is so special to the Philippine society, is you can help to further enhance this social gathering and such like, especially post COVID-19. That will probably be some areas that you might want to look at. I mean, besides that, I don't know enough of the Philippine economy and that to make any comments.
Yeah.
But I like the food, I like the people, and I wish that they would allow us to open up the air flight so that we can go there. Because Pastor John and myself have been going there so often. Now, none of us are able to go for so long.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there's still a lot of questions coming in, but I believe because of the time constraint, we cannot answer everything. Can I ask you this one last questions? And as I think this has something to do with our next webinar questions as well. So this is like kind of a teaser. So the question would be, how do we wait out or even reduce the size of our business in a wise and caring way, especially laying off employees? This is tough questions, but since you both are mentioning about putting your employees first and people first, so this is the questions that are being asked.
So yeah, I don't know if that's Kevin Sutantio who asked that question, but we spoke offline about questions like this. So I'm in a situation where it's not my SME. I have bosses, and if my boss or my boss's boss's boss tells that we have to cut staff, I mean, it's not my decision, right? But one way I go about looking at this, and I think this is something everyone can do, I have not detached myself from my team. Me, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, right? I have accepted that my team and me are one. So if and when these conversations begin, and I have to speak to different stakeholders, they will tell me what they expect, and I will then think about how me and my team will react. I don't mean we start a union. That's not what I'm saying. What I mean is I have to listen to what the bosses say, but I am not exempt from this. I don't detach and then judge or blame or single out people. We are together. And I think that by framing it in this way has been helpful for me, because it creates subtle shifts in how I even think about how I respond and act. Because we will win and we will die together as a company, and we will get through COVID together. And no matter what happens, we are in it together. And I have my integrity, and whatever happens, you know, that's what I will end with my integrity intact. So that is kind of my very high level response to that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I could put forth practical enough advice, but I've always been known to be an idealist. So I'm always at the extreme. Now, on the assumption that if you are the business owner, and that you have over the years built a company on very strong Christian principles of sharing and loving, and that in fact you may even have many of your employees who are already of the faith, brothers and sisters in Christ. If that is that kind of scenario, then you might be bold enough to suggest, in whatever way and how you do it, you have to look at that time, to bring about a common sharing. Now, what do I mean? I've seen, I looked at some of the companies, the top managers are usually the people who drew the highest salaries. It's very disproportionate to the normal staff, right?
Yeah.
But the normal staff who drew the lower salary are the one who probably some are almost hand to mouth. And with the COVID-19 situation, they are more affected than the bosses. The bosses will probably have buy one car less, go to one vacation less, but not the lower. So if I'm a Christian boss, and most of my people are Christians, right? I'll go in and say, look, I will suggest some model of the churches in Acts of the Apostle, where we all bring together and share what we have. Now that is a principle concept, but in practical is that let us, those people in the top 20% percentile, let us give more, because we probably can sacrifice a bit more. If you sacrifice 10% of it, it's a lot more than a lower level percentage.
Yeah.
And we put that together, and that will help each other. That is, you have that Christian perspective. Your organization loves you enough, know that you are not trying to push them down, and they actually will come behind you and support you. That, I believe, brothers and sisters, is true demonstration of strong and good Christian leadership.
Wow. Yes, thank
Amen.
you so much for that principle, both of you. Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really powerful. Thank you. So back to you again, Ellie, to close this
Wow.
up.
Thank you so much. It's like, I know, Jimmy, that there are still so many questions. So it's like applying the learning from Spencer. Listen and question. So I don't know if we will have the chance maybe later to provide the questions to both Lucian and Spencer, and maybe in the next sessions they can be given to them by email. I don't know. But, as we close this afternoon session, and apologies for going over time, but we really enjoyed. I think this time is not sufficient. We have learned so many things. We have learned to listen, to ask. I really like what Lucian said. You start your day with your inner life.
Like good.
And you don't pivot your values. And so many things, and so that we can respond to the opportunities that the changes, the opportunities that we are facing right